Today's results from an ECB survey of 5,000 businesses across the euro area are reinforcing the idea that the eurozone's two biggest economies are moving further apart. The survey shows that France remained a drag on the eurozone's recovery. Private sector activity declined in May, a sign that economic growth in France has yet to pick up after a flat start to the year. This is in marked contrast to the performance of Germany's economy, with the survey pointing to a continuation of strong growth. I'm Sophia Aribo and you're watching Dukascopy TV. Joining me to discuss the mixed bag of EU bigwigs is Raiffeisen Bank International's Jörg Angelé. Jörg, we see Germany's economy growing as France falters and stagnates. Can you explain the difference in their performances? And what does this mean for the euro area as a whole?
To tackle this question, I think one has to go somewhat back in time to understand fully the problems that we see in France at the moment. If you look at Germany and France, the development of the economy back in the beginning of the 1990s, you can see that both countries actually developed quite the same. In both countries, we had private consumption doing well, and we had exports and imports doing well. So, in fact, France had a trade surplus, which was bigger than the one of Germany until 1999. And after that, there was some change in the economic development, which one could pinpoint, I think, pretty well to the introduction of the euro and to the introduction of the ECB, which means that with the euro, Germany got a pretty undervalued currency, and France got a currency which is slightly overvalued for the strength of the French economy. And we had the thing that the interest rates set by the ECB were somewhat too high for the German economy, which was undergoing a phase of weakness back then, and which, on the other hand, the interest rates were somewhat too low for the French economy. So what happened then? We see that in France, private consumption surged, whereas in Germany we had some stagnation in private consumption. And on the other hand, we had soaring exports in Germany because of undervalued currency. And on the other hand, in France, exports did not quite well, and imports started to surge, pushing the trade balance deeply in the reds in France. And in Germany, the trade surplus is increasing over the last couple of years. So this is the main difference between the two countries. And so Germany is profiting from exports, and France has lost its competitiveness. The main problem is that we have more divergence and not convergence. The whole idea for the euro area would be that economies are converging, so the weaker countries catching up to the stronger economies, but at the moment it looks like this is not the case. Germany is going ahead, is the powerhouse of the euro area, while France has these problems.
Some of the blame for France's lacklustre growth figures is being put on structural problems. What will French President François Hollande do to tackle these issues? And do you think it'll be enough to boost growth?
What we saw so far from President Hollande is pretty disappointing. There were some tries from the former President Sarkozy. He at least managed to get the age for retire somewhat up, but the first thing President Hollande did was to cancel these reforms, and at the moment it looks like we have no structural reforms in France, and they are highly needed because we have a highly crusted labor market, and the whole economy is not like clearly a free market economy, but it's the problem of the Socialist Party, I think, is that they like to have this, the government should take care of all, and there's always some suspicion about people or about companies who try to make profits. That's why the French are having so much problems in implementing structural reforms, which are highly needed, because without them there will be no solutions.
Jörg, is Germany the only good news as far as the Eurozone is concerned, or are there other Euro area countries who are turning it around?
If you look at the latest GDP figures for the first quarter, of course, you can see that Spain is doing pretty well. It looks like really hard reforms and austerity measures which Spain and other countries like Portugal did or are paying off, and that the economy is gaining track there, which is really a good sign. We have other countries which are problematic, like Finland or the Netherlands, because they had problems with bursting housing bubbles. And Italy, of course, is kind of same story as France is. So I think there's some light, but there's a lot of darkness still concerning euro area countries' economic performance. But I think in the end, there will be no exception. Every country has to do something Germany did in the 1990s, beginning of the 2000s, or Spain, Portugal, Ireland. This is the only way. There will be no point in leaning back and just doing nothing and hope for being pulled out by someone else.
Thank you, Jörg. That's it for now. You've been watching Dukascopy TV. Goodbye.